Hi everyone, this is a quick demonstration of the label and barcoding enhancement for Acumatica designed by Trabea software. This first screen we're going to show is scan and print. It's very much like other automated screens such as scan and issue, scan and receive, etc. At least in the layout and general appearance. And if I scan here into this scan field, what I'm actually doing is making a list of items that I need to print labels for. So I'm going to scan quickly. I've got a strip of labels in front of me. I'm going to scan those in really quick. And I want to stop here and highlight a couple of things. So these will break out into a line per item or cross-reference scanned. So this Powerade item has got 2 lines, and this one has 3 quantities. So I scanned that barcode 3 times. This one once, and it's broken out because for this barcode I scanned 333B. So it tracks the actual cross-reference that is scanned so that it may record that cross-reference, because that could very well be meaningful for what comes later. I can also select a lot number in this scenario because that's a lot tracked item, and I can select serial numbers for serial tracked items in case I want to print those on the labels. I'm going to hit confirm. This could print the labels for us automatically if we scheduled the process, but I'm going to show here momentarily that done manually. I want to visit the stock item screen just to show that 333B as a cross-reference for the Powerade, also representing a particular unit of measure, box 10. If we visit also the sales price screen, I've added a base price record here for box 10 unit of measure for the Powerade item for $10. I'm going to go to our print labels process screen. So this is the screen I mentioned that you could automate this by label template, printer, and even shared filters that we'll get to. I'm going to select out of our list the scan and print option, and I'll get to the template that'll show why it defaulted to this printer and this shared filter. So that shared filter is a generic inquiry shared filter I added to our underlying generic inquiry, and it's a data provider of the generic inquiry type, and we are able to carry over that shared filter from it. So these are the records that I had scanned, and I'm going to go ahead and print all, and this will send through Device Hub to my Zebra label printer sitting here on my desktop, and we'll get a strip of labels. Any of the labels I print today I will include as a comment in the LinkedIn post for this. Let's move forward to the label template screen. So this is where we are able to store the ZPL code, and what you'll notice here, you don't have to know ZPL. We are able to assist with that design as necessary. But what is relevant here is in between these brackets, that means it's pulling from the data provider. So the data provider, as I mentioned, is essentially a generic inquiry. You know, it's a data provider of that type, so the underlying data is a generic inquiry. And I designed it that way because I feel like in the future I might need to use other data providers as a source for the labels, so I need to keep that track open. So you can see each of these has some kind of data provider parameter, which I've got listed over here for E, so we can copy and paste from here. We've got this preview capability, and the way I've got that set up is you can put in a preview value and save it so that when you make changes you can preview those changes here before you actually print and see what your label is going to look like. Without the preview, then it would just be printing this name of this field, which is meaningless over here, right, and it gets jumbled up. So that's why I added those pieces. Up here, that's where you can see the default label printer, again, Device Hub label printer. There's the default shared filter and the label types that are supported. When we check this box, update pending label quantity, that means we are basically using this label template in conjunction with the scan and print screen and I need to indicate what line number in the queue and what item should I update the pending label quantity back to 0 so that it doesn't try to print that again in the future. The maximum records was just added in case you wanted to limit the maximum number of records that could be printed in a single print job. So if you don't ever see one job going over 100 for that particular template, you can set it at 100, and that way you don't have any accidental queues of 1,000 records as an example. The next piece I want to show is this label and barcode printing is not limited to items. So the scan and print screen works with items, but warehouse location labels can be printed. So could also equipment labels, or for your fixed assets, or it could be employee badges, pallet labels, anything that you can think of. I've even had requests for mailing labels. So there's all kinds of ways you can use this product. And what I want to show here is I've done a low code customization, no code, low code, and we've got this orientation I've added to the warehouses under the locations table. And it's just up, down, left, right. And the thought here is you might have a warehouse with the bottom rack of a shelving unit where there's not a shelf, it's just the floor, the concrete. And so you want to label that, so you might put a label on the shelf above it, but then you got to differentiate that between the shelf, anything sitting on that shelf. And the concept of these arrows I've seen in various warehouses that I've toured, and this is a way we could do that. So I've actually saved an image to the barcode printer, the zebra printer, representing up arrows and down arrows. I've also got left and right arrows, but today we're going to show the up and down. And what we can do is come over to the print label screen. I'm going to refresh. So this one I don't need to make a list. My generic inquiry simply has a list of all the warehouse locations that I've set up with this orientation. And so I just come here and print those. And I'll have those images that print, or labels that print, I'll have that as a comment as well. So you can see how that might work. Another way that I've set this up, just for demonstration purposes, again, this is just meant to show what is possible with a little bit of low code, no code customization tied to this label printing capability. So I've added an action to the purchase receipt screen for print labels, and a corresponding checkbox for labels printed, as well as a checkbox for, hey, I want to print labels. So when you first release this, both of these are unchecked until you desire, right, the way I designed it. And I'm going to print, and notice that unchecks the labels printed and make sure that it is true for print labels. That was already true, but it makes sure that it's true. So basically that gets added to the queue of a generic inquiry that, hey, we need some labels. And that'll print automatically. This is one I've actually got scheduled to run automatically. And when it runs, it'll set this checkbox to true. And we'll take a quick look at how that might work. So you can see here the update printed flag. And there's those labels. But here's the update printed flag. And how do we know what flag, what record to update and what flag to update? So it's a custom flag. How do we anticipate that? Well, we let you choose it, right? So it should be in your data provider, in your generic inquiry, and then you select it here. And it must be a Boolean type. It verifies that so that it's just going to go and set that to true, and that it's printed. And what record? So in this case I have receipt type and receipt number. I could also do it at the receipt line level, right? Because I've got a third level that I could identify here. So that's how that piece works. And if we come back to our purchase receipts, just to show, when I take a picture of the labels that printed, there are the lines, and it also takes these quantities and assumes that you need each quantity as well. That's an assumption for this scenario. You may not need that. And I also want to come back, I'll refresh so that we can see that the labels printed flag was indeed set to true. So that's just a quick overview of some examples that we can use, a feature screen like this, which by the way does work from the mobile app. And this idea came from my retail background, where I used to walk a sales floor, and if I spot an item that didn't have a shelf label, a price label on it, then I could just scan the barcode off that item with a mobile device I was carrying, and then I had a mobile zebra printer attached to my hip that would print out the label right there for me. So this came from that idea, but it can be used in so many different ways. To make that list, you can add the items manually. If you don't have a barcode to scan right there, you can still make a list of items. So something I think it could be very useful. Distributors, even manufacturers, I've built things like this for production orders as well, where you can print the labels that you need from the production order. And because it's working with generic inquiry data, you can really put whatever type of information you want to link to that inquiry onto your label. Let me know if you have any questions.